let's talk about 7 moves I'm making personally in my leagues before week number 5. We've got buys, sells, starts, sits, stashes, and cuts. A little bit of everything for you, and there are time codes as well in case you want to skip to a certain section. By the way, I'm replying to the first 3 comments on every video this year, so make sure you're subscribed and you've turned your notifications on. All right, let's start with a trade 4. I'm going to do trade 4s and then sells. Jameson Williams. All right, the JMO experience, and I can speak from personal experience as someone who owns him in the Flock League. It's not been fun, okay? It's not been fun. So I know this as a Jameson Williams owner, that Jameson Williams owners are not going to be 100% sold on him in fantasy football right now. It's been rough. It's been a rough first 4 weeks. I mean, you can see only one game that you're really proud of. And in that one game versus Chicago in week 2, 18.8 fantasy points, he had just 2 receptions. But that ended up 108 yards and a touchdown. That is kind of the Jameson Williams experience a little bit in a nutshell. Every other game under 7 fantasy points. So this provides a really good buy low opportunity for those people in your leagues who are not willing to be patient with Jameson Williams. And I do believe there is some light at the end of the tunnel. Firstly, on the year, he ranks 7th in air yardage share. Now, why is that important? Now, that's what makes Jameson Williams so valuable when he's hitting on these deep receptions, because while he's not going to get 10 targets per game, those 5 targets he's getting in this Lions offense are high value targets. It only takes 1 play for him to return value. We know how valuable he is on a per target basis. And here's better news. In week number 4, the Lions were very intentional about getting him the ball. Jameson Williams actually tied Amon-Ra St. Brown in targets last week with 7. He actually had a carry on the ground, so 8 total opportunities, more than Amon-Ra St. Brown. And again, those were high value targets. I mean, Ian Hartitz really paints the perfect picture here. Jameson Williams had 195 unrealized air yards, meaning there were 195 receiving yards that just didn't end up panning out. That's the 3rd highest single game mark since 2022. Now he notes, of course, like 3 games under 50 yards, but the Bengals are trying to get him there. Now, he and Jared Goff, they were just simply not on the same page last week. And after the game, Goff actually took some responsibility for his part, talking about how he could have thrown some better balls, taking blame for the interception. I mean, just 57% of Jameson Williams' targets last week were deemed catchable. So it's not all on Jameson Williams, but of course, Jameson played a part with a couple drops. Later on, they had a press conference, and Goff talked about his strong confidence in Jameson Williams. Check this out.
He's so steady Eddie throughout the week now. It's like I've got no reservations with him at all. He's as good as they get in our league. He can score on any touch. He can score from anywhere, and gonna keep believing in him no matter what.
And lastly, Jameson Williams has a great chance to smash in week number 5. He plays the Bengals. That's the 4th best matchup for your fantasy wide receivers. They're top 6 in total yards allowed per game and total points given up per game. The Lions have the highest implied team point total. So if he's going to smash, this is a great week to do so. Here are some real trades that have happened in the Flock League. We actually have a database that shows real trades across a bunch of different platforms in fantasy football. So someone sent away DeAndre Swift. I love that. I think DeAndre Swift could lose his job. Someone attached Dalton Kincaid to Josh Downs. Love that. Dalton Kincaid only had 1 target last week. I know he's had some great games, but I still don't think he's like a locked and loaded superstar. And someone sent away Tony Pollard. I am not a big fan of Tony Pollard rest of the season, so I would be more than comfortable to do that. I'd rather have Jameson in my flex. Okay, the second player I think you should trade for, and I swear this is not bias, okay? I have this guy in the Flock League too. Bill Krosky Merritt. Before you turn the video off, just give me a second, because this buy will require patience. However, it will be extremely affordable. I promise you, this will be the cheapest buy we talk about this entire season. Okay, so from Dan Graziano of ESPN this week, he said that the Commanders are happy using a committee at the moment with those 3 guys, but they do view Krosky Merritt as the most capable of the 3 to emerge as an all-around threat out of the backfield. And as he gains more experience, Dan would expect his role to increase, which has kind of been my opinion as well. If you've been on our channel, it's fairly obvious to me and probably to you that JCM is the best rusher they have, but they probably just need him to gain more experience in all the little details of playing the running back position. You might be asking, Zach, why is it fairly obvious that he's the best rusher? Well, because every time the kid touched the ball, he's balling out, all right? 36 running backs have had 25 or more rushing attempts in 2025 so far. Here's where he ranks. He ranks first in PFF grade, second in yards per attempt, 13th in breakaway percentage. He has the lowest stuff percentage, which by the way, stuff percentage is the percentage of carries that are stuffed. A stuff is a run that doesn't result in a first down, a touchdown, less than 4 yards on first down, or less than 3 yards on any other down. Simply put, he does more with his touches than most running backs right now. He's the only running back in the league under 30% in that category. He has the number 1 zone run success rate, the number 3 gap run success rate. I mean, the tape doesn't lie. The analytics don't lie. Keep in mind, we have never seen JCM in a game without Austin Eckler where Jaden Daniels has been healthy, right? We haven't seen that yet. So patience will win the day. Here are some trades I'm willing to do. I did this trade in the Flock League a couple weeks ago. I sent away Tony Pollard for JCM. I personally am still willing to do that. We'll talk about Tony Pollard in a second. I'm willing to send away Hollywood Brown, Jerry Jeudy. Here are some real trades that have happened, right? Okay. Speaking of the devil, I mean, he's not the devil, but let's talk about Tony Pollard, one of my trade aways. I talked about him last week, but I asked myself, who is the guy you would still today, Zach, want to trade away the most? It's Tony Pollard, okay? So here's the deal. Currently, Tony Pollard has 89% of the Titans running back snaps. No other running back in the NFL has a higher percentage of their team snaps, okay? He got 86% of the team's designed rushing attempts so far. Again, no other running back in the NFL is even above 80% in that number. And all of those opportunities have turned into one game over 13 fantasy points, one single touchdown. And now Tajay Spears is eligible to come back at any moment. Doesn't mean he's going to come back this week, but he could. You'll find out here very soon after you watch this video. But he could be back at any single moment. And this is not an offense that I want to be attached to in fantasy football if Tony Pollard isn't going to be the workhorse alpha from a usage perspective, because the Titans are second to last in yards per game and dead last in offensive points per game. What is the upside? What is the upside in a Tony Pollard? I don't get it. So I'm wanting to trade him away in a package or a 1-for-1. I'd rather have Jaylen Warren, which someone did in a trade here recently. And of course, give me Jameson Williams as a flex option. Okay. I also have been telling y'all to sell DK Metcalf. I'm going to continue to tell you to sell DK Metcalf. He's the most obvious sell high in my opinion, and nothing that happened last week is going to change that for me. Through 4 weeks of the NFL, this whole narrative where, hey, Rodgers is going to pepper his number 1, that narrative isn't holding up that well in this specific offense. DK has 0 games over 7 targets, 0 games over 5 receptions, only half of his games over a 20% target share, and he has 1 single game over 13 fantasy points, despite scoring a touchdown in 3 out of 4 games. Do you know how hard that is to do? That's actually impressive how bad that is. Now, of course, everybody came to this video last week when I talked about DK Metcalf and said, oh, you're an idiot, Zach. Oh, you're an idiot. DK Metcalf is actually awesome. Okay, fine. If you want to bet on an 80-yard touchdown from a slant route every single week for DK Metcalf, you be my guest. We're still talking about a guy that had 5 targets, 5 catches. I mean, this is the same problem. You're just lucky he housed it. And of course, DK is capable of that. But those are types of plays that receivers have like what? Maybe 1, 2, 3 times an entire season. This did not change my mind personally through 4 weeks. And this is really the biggest problem. Through 4 weeks, when you look at his utilization rate, which is a great number that Fantasy Life uses to look at like total valuable usage in fantasy football, he has a lower rate than Zach Ertz. Some of these tight ends that you're not even sure if you can start each week. Dalton Kincaid, Brenton Strange, Harold Fannin, wide receivers like Wan'Dale Robinson, Hollywood Brown. I mean, it doesn't help that his offense doesn't really want to throw the ball. They want to rush the ball. Only 4 teams in the NFL have a lower passing attempts per game than DK Metcalf. So I would like to sell him. If you can package him in a bad running back like Nick Chubb to get a good running back like Etienne, perfect. Someone did the same thing, but they went out and got Javonte Williams. Someone went out and got Roma Dunze. If you can use him to either tier up or tier down, I'm willing to do that with DK Metcalf. Okay, let's talk about a player that I want you to bench, because benching this name might actually save your week 5. Jordan Mason. I know this is hard to hear. Obviously, sometimes it goes without saying, but you guys are really harsh in the comments sometimes. It goes without saying, but in case I need to say it, if you don't have a clear, better name, of course you have to play him, okay? Like, duh. Just hope for the best if you don't have a clear, better name. But he plays the Cleveland Browns. That is the worst matchup for your fantasy running back this year. The Browns give up the fewest rushing yards per game. They allow the lowest yards per carry to opposing offenses, and they give up the fewest total yards per game. I mean, that defense is elite right now. The Browns against running backs this year, Derrick Henry, 2 points, 2.1 yards per carry. Josh Jacobs, 1.9 yards per carry. Only 12 points because of what he did through the air. David Montgomery, 1.3 yards per carry. I mean, you keep seeing examples of running backs getting stuffed against the Cleveland Browns. Why would it be different for Jordan Mason? The only way Mason pays off at ADP is if there are multiple goal line opportunities. I mean, even last week, if you think about it, we saw this team utilize another running back in obvious pass catching downs. That was Xavier Scott. He ran more routes and had 4 more targets than Jordan Mason out of the backfield. So again, I love Jordan Mason. I mean, he's one of the guys we really love drafting this year, but this is just not a matchup that I love if you have a better option. For example, I'd rather start names like Woody Marks. I'd rather start names like Cam Scatterbo, David Montgomery, Tony Pollard, and Chase Brown. Look, the NFL is absolutely chaotic. I mean, we all know this, right? This week, for example, in the span of 24 hours, Trey Benson went from one of the starts of the week to going on the IR. If you want to know my latest up-to-date rankings for rest of season and weekly, as soon as I hit submit, then all you got to do is become a season pass member with the promo code LAND. When you get the season pass with my code, it's only a $34 one-time purchase. That's about $280 per week for the rest of the year. Not only do you get the rankings, you get some vouchers to come on the live stream and ask us questions, as well as unlimited access to the Flock site and the tools like the trade calculator. Okay, another player I want to bench here. This hurts my heart because I got this guy in my leagues, Bo Nix. We probably should bench Bo Nix this week if we have a better option. He plays the Eagles. Eagles are the third worst matchup for your fantasy quarterback when you look at schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed. They've faced some great offenses so far this year, like the Dallas Cowboys, the Chiefs, the Rams, the Bucks. So their numbers aren't as great as you might anticipate, but that's because they've played some great offenses. I think there's still a very, very good defense. I mean, Dak Prescott had 8 points. Matthew Stafford had 15 points against them. I would rather start names like Daniel Jones, Kyler Murray, Justin Herbert, Jared Goff, and Justin Fields. Okay, how about a name that I have the utmost confidence in starting? This is probably not a surprise. I mean, you all know I'm like the leader of the Woody Marks hype train right now. It's Woody Marks. Yeah, he plays the Baltimore Ravens. Best matchup for your fantasy running back, in case you need any more convincing. Now, look, I might be biased. All right, I love scouting this kid out of USC. I have him in the Flock League. I'm starting him. I don't think this is wish casting, though, because there's so many reasons why he could be a great start. Firstly, the Ravens defense torn to shreds, y'all. Top 6 in rushing yards allowed, top 2 in total yards allowed, giving up the most points per game. You've seen great performances from like James Cook against these guys, David Montgomery against these guys. It was a 7.5 point spread in favor of the Ravens, but then Lamar injury came up, and now it's a 1.5 point favorite for the Texans, and we don't think Lamar is going to be there. Now, regardless of the matchup, I mean, Woody has just taken over the backfield. You can see each and every week his snap percentage is going up. Each and every week he's getting more and more of the opportunities, and this staff is not going to scale him back. I mean, D'Amico Ryan's head coach after the game wasn't saying, yeah, we probably used him too much. Listen to what he was saying.
So it's a lot of exciting plays, a lot of big plays for us that we're excited to see, how much more he can handle.
So again, when a coach is like, hey, we want to see how much more this guy can do, that's probably a name that I'm putting in my starting lineups. Okay, let's talk about some players that you can cut off your team, free your mind, and go pick up different stashes, which we will talk about stashes afterwards, right? But again, if any of these names end up being the wrong cut, come back and yell at me. That's fine. I can take it, okay? But all these names, I think you should move on from at this point. Starting off with Joe Flacco, specifically for Superflex leagues, okay, move on. He's not going to come back to be a starter. He had 8 turnovers in 4 weeks, okay? All right, how about Braylon Allen? Look, I think it's time to move on from Braylon Allen. Even if Breece Hall was to go down, Isaiah Davis would be heavily involved. But the reality is Braylon Allen's going to have a serious injury. He might go on the IR. Sure, you can hold him for free, but what is the upside even like if you keep him? If Breece goes down, Isaiah Davis is going to be involved. You can also drop Dylan Sampson. Now, Dylan Sampson looked like he had some intrigue in week number 1 where he had 8 targets, but I mean, since Judkins has come back, 8% of the snaps, 13% of the snaps in a bad offense, I can't think of a single reason to keep him. Free your mind. How about Calvin Ridley? Well, look, if you're in a smaller league, and I'm talking to my 10-team and 8-team leagues out there, yes, you can cut him because it's not a good offense, just like we talked about with Tony Pollard. And I'm not even sure if he's the alpha number 1 on a bad offense anyway, right? He's dealing with an injury. But if you're out there in like a 14, even 12-team maybe league, maybe you should hold on to him for a little bit more. Rashad Bateman, I just don't know what the upside case is for Rashad Bateman. Unless you're playing in a best ball format, there's not really a reason to keep him. Sure, he could score a touchdown at any given moment, but all the other games, he'll give you like 1 to 5 fantasy points. It's like, especially with DeAndre Hopkins there, Hopkins get a lot of red zone opportunities. I don't know what the upside is. Tyquan Thornton was completely nuked by the coming back of Xavier Worthy. Yes, he had a touchdown, but he played 34% of the snaps. I mean, come on. There's just no role. And Rashee Rice is going to come back soon. Kayshon Boutte, I hate to admit it, but yeah, he ended up being not a great pickup after week 1 of the waiver wire. I really thought they were going to heavily utilize him. He looked really good. I don't understand the lack of utilization, but he's just not a good pickup at this point. Calvin Austin dealt with an injury. I think you move on from him. It's an offense that doesn't throw the ball much anyway. Xavier Legette is just negative per touch type of player. And then Evan Ingram, I mean, right now he's not even playing over their backup tight end. So I don't know what the reason is to keep him at this point. Look, we're going to jump into some stashes, but just before we do, I want to talk about 6 players that I have the utmost confidence in for week number 5, okay? Here's the DFS lineup I'm rocking with. Jahmyr Gibbs at the Bengals. Oh my gosh, he should smash. Nico Collins at the Ravens. And they just lost their number 1 cornerback, so he should dominate. Woody Marks, we already talked about why. Cam Scatterbo against the Saints. Great matchup. He should drown in touches. Garrett Wilson versus the Dallas Cowboys. There's not a better matchup for Garrett Wilson this year. And then Quentin Johnston versus the Commanders. Week 5 of FastDraft's Quick 6 Super Slam contest. It just opened. All you have to do is choose 6 non-quarterbacks and submit a lineup, right? Download the FastDraft app. If you haven't yet, use my promo code LAND. I'll match your deposit up to $50. And then you're going to get my week 5 rankings completely free. Okay, let's jump into some stashes here to end the video. Brashard Smith is my first stash. Now, the offensive coordinator, Matt Nagy, has talked about this week wanting to get Brashard Smith more and more involved. And we've already kind of seen his involvement go up. You can see snaps on offense, 8, 5, 8, and 19. You'll see that in a percentage from 13% to 8 to 11 to 26%. He had a career high in touches last week with 8. That's a very encouraging sign. You can actually see how close he was in total snaps last week versus the Ravens. 32 to Kareem Hunt. He led the way. 27 to Pacheco, but then Brashard Smith right behind them. In fact, Pacheco had 10 touches compared to Brashard Smith's 8. So he's not that far behind in the pecking order at this point. They want to get him more and more involved. There's no juice whatsoever for a Kareem Hunt, for an Isaiah Pacheco. Brashard Smith has a ton of juice in spades, if you will. He's a former wide receiver at Miami, converted to running back at SMU. He was a big reason why this team made the college football playoffs, SMU that is, and he was one of my favorite sleepers. So I want to stash him because, you know, there is certainly a Jet McKinnon role out there for him with this team. All right, the next stash I want to talk about is Isaiah Bond. Cedric Tillman has gone down with an injury. He'll be going on IR, and you can see Nick Arcolano from BDGE agrees. Like, we had the same exact thought here. I was looking at the snap percentages on Sleeper, 28, 38, 65, 55. You can see his routes by week are going up each and every week. And something you need to know about Isaiah Bond is he and Matthew Golden, at what point of the year, people were thinking that Isaiah Bond was a better prospect. Isaiah Bond had a great combine, but then he had some off the field issues that really hurt his capital, and he signed with the Cleveland Browns completely free. You can see his targets, receptions per week are all going up as well. Super talented guy. There's plenty of signs to tell us that, hey, now without Cedric Tillman, even just last week, he was second on the team in snaps, routes run, targets. So there are plenty of signs to indicate that he could be more and more involved. New quarterback in Dylan Gabriel. I think that's worth stashing and finding out what it could be as a potential flex. But guys, I appreciate you so much watching the video. Do me a favor, hit the like button. But here's the thing, only if you found any value in the video. And of course, subscribe. Again, if you found any value. If it was just a run-of-the-mill video, and fair enough, you didn't see any value, then don't subscribe and don't like it. But I appreciate y'all watching it. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Nothing but love. Draft with me every night this week on the FastDraft app, where there are thousands of dollars to be won weekly. Getting started is easy. Download the FastDraft app, use the promo code LAND at signup to get your deposit match up to $50. That's up to 10 free entries on us. And when you finish your first DFS contest, I'll send you my weekly rankings completely free. Check out the link in the pinned comment to start drafting today.